Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of the WriterAccess Writer webinar. This month, we will be doing something a little bit different from our normal routine, where we talk to one writer about their career and their experience. This month, we'll be talking to a panel of WriterAccess writers. So we're calling this the Tips and Success Stories from WriterAccess Writers. And as always, before we begin, I want to let everybody know that this webinar is being recorded. So if you missed something or want to go back and revisit it, you'll be getting an email with the recordings and slides today or early tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. The format of this webinar, as I mentioned, is a little bit different than usual. We'll be doing 5 different presenters doing sort of short presentations with a few questions along the way. And then at the end, we'll be doing the typical 15-minute or so Q&A, which will be more of a discussion among the panelists. So don't forget to send your questions along the way. If something pops into mind, just type it into the chat box along the bottom of your GoToWebinar dashboard, or you can also live tweet us. So we're at the hashtag #WriteOn. We'll be sending out things and taking your questions that way as well. So I am, as always, Greg Hunt, the Talent Marketing Manager here at WriterAccess. You can tweet me at Gregor Hunt, or you can tweet us WriterAccess at WriterAccess. The experts for this month will be these 5 6-star writers here at WriterAccess. We have Aaron S., Lindsay D., Tracy S., Miranda B., and Amber K. And very excited to have them all with us. They're all veterans who have done a great job on the platform and really know their stuff. So before we go any further, I will pass it off to the first presenter, Erin F. She's a freelance writer, published fiction author, and the ghostwriter of several nonfiction works. So Erin, thanks for joining us.
Well, I'm so excited to be here.
All right. Well, welcome, and take it away.
Okay, excellent. Just to give a background, I have been with WriterAccess for less than 2 years, and right now I am pretty much living off of solo and love list orders that I've gotten through casting calls, and so I just really love casting calls, and I would wish more people would take advantage of this. Recently I encouraged a friend of mine to join WriterAccess, and I was helping walk her through a casting call process for the first time and realized that my skills have really changed. When I started with WriterAccess, I was getting about a 60% conversion rate of a casting call to either a love list or a solo order, and now I'm in the high 90s of converting a casting call application to a love list or a solo order. So I'm going to share with you sort of some of the do's and don'ts, why I love them, and also I'm going to literally walk you through how I apply for a casting call. And hopefully this will give you some ideas of how you might do it. So why I love them. Well, first of all, you are pitching to people who already want you. They just don't know they want you personally. It's your job to tell them that, but it's not a cold call. It's not just some, oh, I'm sure I happen to write and you might like to let me write for you. They're already telling you they want you, and they're telling you exactly what they want, which makes it really, really easy. And I love casting calls because it lets me write about things that I know and love. I can choose what sort of topics I want to write for, versus when I started with this site, and with any site, you haven't built anything up yet, and so it's like, oh, I'm writing about cars today because that's the only thing there, and I need some money. So this lets you really focus on things that you really know and you love and you want to maybe learn more about. And then casting calls lead to love lists and solo orders, which are awesome things. I like love lists because it limits my competition for projects. Instead of competing with, like, something great might come up in the general orders, and by the time I get to it, it's already been staffed up because I'm competing with everybody on the site. Versus a love list, something great might pop up, but I'm only competing with, I'm on some love lists where there's 3 other people or 2 other people or maybe 20, but still it narrows my competition, which means I have a better shot of snagging that thing, and so I love that. Love list orders are also often for solo orders, and so you apply, you get it, it's just yours, and that is awesome. I've also been able to convert love list orders to solo orders. It wasn't an intent, it was just I did a love list order, and whoever it was loved it so much, the work that I did, that instead of sending it out as a love list order now, they send it as solo orders to me. I have a couple clients that I'm writing for that do this, and one of them pretty much guarantees me $500 a month of income on Writers Access, and so that has been awesome. Now, solo orders can result in long-term clients. I have a couple people I've written for through a love list or a casting call process where I did a solo order for, and I finish it, they're thrilled, great, I don't hear from them, and then all of a sudden 3-4 months later they say, hey, we have another one of those types of projects, are you available, are you interested? I'm like, yes, of course. And so then I get another solo order, and also even people that I've done some long-term projects for, I get to know their personalities, what they like, what they don't like. It's just a lot of easy back and forth. I can explain to them an issue I'm seeing or suggest something that they might not have thought about. And so I like having long-term clients that I can have this back and forth with. So basically, Loveless Orders guarantees me steady work and steady income, and that all comes from the casting call. So casting calls are awesome. Next slide, please. Okay, when you're applying to a casting call, there's a lot of things to do and a couple things you really don't want to do. And what I don't have under the do, because I'm hoping it's obvious, but actually read through the casting call completely because you want to be specific. And so, under the do's, definitely keep it short and concise. Greg had asked me to maybe give some examples, but I kind of got stuck on what that. I don't even want to imagine what a bad casting call looks like, so I kind of got stopped. But anyway, you want to keep it short and concise. They've told you what they want, so be specific in telling them how you meet what they want, because you're doing two things. You're really putting yourself out there, but at the same time you're demonstrating through your casting call that you know how to write, that you can write tight and clean. And so it's both an application as far as these are the skills, aren't I awesome, but also demonstrating the skills that show that you're awesome. So short and concise. Provide information that's relevant to their specific needs. I have a business degree, a law degree, I've been a consultant, I've climbed Kilimanjaro, I've adopted a baby from China. All of these things have come up on different casting calls. But for most casting calls, 99% of my background and experience, they don't care about. So I need to make sure that I'm providing stuff that they don't have to sort through all of my background to find what it is that's relevant to them. I'm going to tell them exactly. I'm going to pinpoint it exactly to what's relevant to their needs. And then I'm also going to say, okay, this is my experience, but this is also the skills that I have. So I've got this experience, and this is what I've written about. So not only do I have this personal experience, this hands-on experience, but I've also written about this several times. So how my skill set applies to what exactly they need. When I write, one thing to do is make sure that everything that they've said there is a requirement. They want you to have a skill at SEO maximization. They want you to have skills at website content. They want you to have skills in whatever. Make sure that you actually say that when you're applying. Say, yes, I have this exact skill, I promise. They don't have to wonder because you left something off. So make sure that you address absolutely everything. And through the casting call process, you really want to demonstrate that you understand who their intended audience is and what their communication goals are. I'll talk to you exactly later how I do that in a few slides, but if you can have the best skills ever, but if you haven't shown them how you can apply that to their specific needs, you're not going to be in the top looks, so to speak, of what they want. So make sure that you demonstrate and that you have this understanding. And the weird thing is that some clients don't tell you that. You have to kind of read and infer what their goals are, who their audience is, because sometimes it's kind of vague. Oh, we have this new website and we need a blog for this website. Okay, well, I'm going to infer from that they're trying to drive readers to their website. So I'm going to guess that's their goal, and given that this is this type of website, that this is their audience. Some people are very specific. The whole, age ranges and stuff are helpful, but I want to go broader than that. I want to know, like, what group they're trying to pull in. And you want to be able to figure that out and then tell them in your casting call how you can reach that audience. And the other thing is express a strong interest. There have been times when I have been applying for something and I really, really wanted it because it's just something I'm really passionate about. Just in case I haven't told them that already, near the end I will say, I feel strongly about this topic and I would love to be part of your writing team or a member of your writing team. Don't be shy about saying this. This is your chance to put yourself out there, and so don't do it part way. Just tell them. I really, really want this, and this is what I can offer you. Okay. Now let's go to don't. Okay, don't rehash your resume. It's already on the system. If they like what they see from the casting call, they'll go look, and they might come back with questions. I've had this happen. So don't rehash, because they'll find it. Just give them the parts that's relevant to what they need. Don't create a standardized response. I've heard this over and over from people. I've actually had a couple of casting call people say, we picked you. I literally got this email. We picked you because you were the only one that actually addressed our needs, because everybody else had this standard little thing that they wrote. So I might have standard things I might say, but everybody needs something different. So I might have certain phrases I like to use or different things that I do, but I write a different casting call application every single time, and they can tell. The people who are reading these, they can tell who was responding to them versus who was just responding. So don't be one of those people. Don't promise anything you can't deliver or misrepresent your skills. I haven't applied to a couple of casting calls simply because their deadline was something I knew I couldn't meet. And so I didn't want to bother them with the process. I didn't want to bother myself with the process. But also, like if somebody says we want somebody with excellent SEO skills, I'm not sure what that means. I have SEO skills, so sure, I can say that I have excellent ones. I don't know what their standard is. But if somebody wants a great hands-on experience in technology, I don't got that. I respect people that do, but I don't have that, and I'm not going to say that I do, because it's either fake and I'm going to have to do so much time and research to pretend that I do, or they're going to know right away that I don't. It's just not going to happen. Don't forget to check for grammar and spelling problems, because again, this is not just you telling them what you can do, it's showing them what you can do. And if you send something off with grammar and spelling problems, you're over. It's done. And don't provide personal information. I know they tell you this over and over, but I have had this happen a couple times to me. I've realized that my fingers have muscle memory, and if I type my first name, I can stop. If I type my first name and the first initial of my last name, my fingers just keep going to spell out my whole last name. And so twice now I've had to call WriterAccess and say, I'm so sorry, I applied for a casting call and use my last name. And it's kind of scary when Georgina emails you back in all capital letters saying, don't do it again. So don't do it. But I've just learned that I can't be trusted with my last initial. I just sign everything Aaron, because if I sign it with an F, the rest of my name just falls out. So, and everybody probably has a little quirk like that. So if you're aware of it, just figure out something to do so that you don't do that, because you just don't. Okay, so how do I apply? And again, this is for me, a winning formula. Hopefully you'll find some tips. I start with a strong opening sentence that hopefully will capture their attention. Mine is some version of, I have degrees in business and law and worked for over 18 years as, and I'll either say a healthcare consultant or a business consultant. They're both true. I worked as a healthcare consultant, but fortunately for me, all my healthcare clients were businesses, and all the skills that I have applied to businesses in general. So if I'm applying for a healthcare project, I will say healthcare. If I'm applying for a business project, or I will say business. If I'm applying for a legal project that has nothing really to do with business, I'll leave that part out altogether. So, so I will tailor this, adjust it to be the client. I'm going to have a strong opening sentence. And then the rest of that paragraph is going to be my relevant work experience to their needs. You know, I've had this sort of a marketing experience, this type of a human resources experience. I've written, I've done, this or that or other thing that specifically relates to what they want. So they can see that my writing skills are backed up by hands-on experience. I'm not just something I've read about, it's something that I've done. So my first paragraph is my strong sentence and my hands-on experience. And again, it's tailored to the scope of the project, because if you can't tell, I could probably go on and on and on about my background and my experience, but I don't. It's like, this is it. And this might be 3, maybe 4 sentences. I keep it really tight. And then, so that's paragraph 1. Paragraph 2 usually starts with, as a freelance writer, I have, and then I talk about the specific things that I've written for clients with same types of needs. I've written blogs, I do website content, I've done this, I've done that for this type of a business issue, this type of a law firm or an accounting firm or whoever it is, I have done exactly what you're looking for other clients, and I can do it for you. That's the unwritten messages, and I can do it for you. So the second paragraph is about how I've taken my hands-on experience and applied it to my freelance writing experience, and these are specific things that I have done. So they've got both. Now, depending on what I'm doing, I might follow up then with a strong closing paragraph. So that's got a 3-paragraph application. Boom, boom, boom. In and out. They're happy, I'm happy, and I get picked. Now, there's 2 situations where I will add another paragraph. And one is if they want something specific that really doesn't fit into these 2 categories. For me, that is if somebody says, oh, I need somebody who's got some experience with an ebook. This is the only time that I'll mention that, oh, and in addition to all of this, I am a traditionally published author, fiction writer, and I am a ghostwriter of nonfiction works. And so they know that I have the experience with writing and formatting and planning out a book. I've got that structure experience and that hands-on writing experience. The other time, next slide, please. The other time that I will add an additional paragraph is if the casting call says, if you get this, you need to pitch an idea within 24 hours. Some of them are like that. If we pick you, you need to pitch an idea. I used to do that. I used to pitch, and or I would apply, then if they picked me, I would pitch. But then I decided one day, why am I waiting? And so I pitch during the casting call. I'll say, if selected, these are the types of things that I would like to write for you. And I pitched, just throw out a couple topics, a couple concepts. I would write about this, I write about this, write about this. That one thing has gotten me on this type of a casting call, gone from about a 50% selection to like a 99% selection because I'm showing my interest. I'm saying, oh, wow, I really know what you want, and this is what I would do if you picked me. And they're like, oh, wow, she's already got ideas. We're going to pick her. So you don't have to wait. Don't wait. Just, if you got an idea, throw it out there. It can't hurt, and it can really help. So that's my body of my application. My closing paragraph is where I show that I understand their audience and I understand their goals. So I will close, and I will say, I can provide you with the communication. Don't say, I think I can, or I'd like to, or I'm confident I can, or I will be, I should. Be direct. I can, or I will. Just don't wishy-wash, because you shouldn't. You know you can. You know you will. Don't be afraid to say it. So I usually have something like, I can provide you with the unique and compelling content you require to drive readers to your website, or buyers to your website, or I'll tailor to what they need. Or I can create the informative content that will educate your clients and encourage them to engage your services. So again, I'm going to look at what it is, who their audience is, and what do I need to do to engage them? And am I informing? Am I communicating? Am I educating? Am I selling? What is it that I'm doing, and what is it that we want them, the client or the audience, to then do? What is the goal of all this? So the last paragraph shows that I don't have to repeat everything. They already know what I can do. So I'm going to take all that and say, you know my background. Now I'm going to use all of that to provide you with this, which is really what you want. So I've shown you that I can, and I show that I understand what you want and what you need, and boom, I'm in, I'm out. And then I always end with, and this is my phrase, you can come up with something else, I always end with, thank you for your consideration. Aaron. Not Aaron F., because I can't do that, but Aaron. So I always then thank them because they've taken their time to read my application, and that's worth something. So I always say thank you. And that is what I do.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Aaron, for sharing that with us. Those are so many good tips. Just excellent stuff. I think everybody should download this immediately afterwards and write all those down above their desk for when they apply. The thing that it stands out to me that I'm really interested in, I think most important of all of them, is you mentioned that not sending a standardized response, how important that is. What would you say to a writer who's like, I only get accepted for 25% of my casting calls anyway, it's a waste of my time to do this every single time?
I would say that something is missing, and it might be your passion. If you don't have a lot of hands-on experience, but if it's something that you really love, talk about how you've loved this and you've been interested in forever. You keep up with the latest trends, and this is why you've written for this so much. So, you've written about this, you love writing about this, and just, so don't be shy about sharing your passion, and don't be shy about saying directly, I can do this, I will do this, this is be direct, be very direct in what you say you can do, because you can.
All right. Well, amazing tips. Thank you very much. And everyone can follow Erin on Twitter at Erin Farwell, on her website, erinfarwell.com, and check out her WriterAccess profile, see what she's up to at WriterAccess. So thanks again, Erin.
Sure.
Next up, we have Tracy S. Tracy is a freelance writer with WriterAccess. She's a 6-star writer who's been with us for 5 years, so she really knows the platform. And she's here to talk with us about client communication and how you can improve your client communication. Tracy, are you there? Tracy, see if we can get her mic going.
I'm here.
Hey there, welcome.
Hi.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Let's hear about how you improve client communication.
Okay, awesome. I'm very excited to talk about client communication today. Like he mentioned, I've been working with WriterAccess since 2011. Back then, there were no casting calls, and a lot of the features that are on the platform now didn't even exist. So back then, all we had were sending messages back and forth. So things have certainly changed a lot, but one thing that hasn't changed is the need to communicate back and forth with the clients. And we can go ahead to our first slide. So, say you're working on a thrilling piece. For me, it would probably be something on HVAC maintenance, or maybe property management, real estate, something like that, whatever your topic of interest is. You look down, you have an email message, and you've gotten a message from a client. What are you going to do? Well, these messages are interesting. Sometimes they can be the start of a great working relationship, or sometimes they wind up not turning into anything at all. The most important thing is that you address those messages quickly and that you know how to address them properly. Basically, I put down 5 simple ways that you can provide superior customer service when it comes to client communications. Number 1, you want to answer messages promptly. While occasionally you may have a message that doesn't need to be responded to, an obvious spam message, which, believe it or not, actually happens within the platform, for the most part, you're going to want to respond quickly. Even if the message is something that you have no interest in, it doesn't take but 30 seconds out of your day to quickly respond and say, hey, I'm not interested in this, and move along. But if you are interested, just a quick response, get back to the client quickly. That way you have more of a chance to land that job. And when you do respond to the client, be specific. If the client is looking for someone to write something about, say, real estate, go ahead and respond with your background in the topic. If the client's looking for ideas, go ahead and start sharing some ideas. If the client is looking for prices, go ahead and tell him what your pricing is. Tell him, hey, I only work at the 6-star rate, or for a project like this, I'm looking for a premium rate, or for a rewriting project like this, I'm willing to work at the 4-star rate. Go ahead and be specific. This helps the client understand how you're going to fit in the big picture. As far as don't be afraid to share ideas, I see sometimes in the forum or when talking with other writers that people don't want to share ideas. They feel like that's giving something away for free. You know what? If you don't share ideas, there's another writer out there that's willing to do that, and they're going to land the job. I consider that a cost of earning the job. If I hold on to that idea, I may hold on to that idea forever. As far as getting messages, sometimes I get messages from a client that I realize that that job is not suited for me. Happens more often than you'd think. Quite often I'll get a message from someone who wants something very, very high tech, and while I can handle low tech projects, you know, about, say, Microsoft Word or cloud computing or something, if I get someone who needs something very high tech, that job's not for me. I will let them know, hey, I'm not the right person for the job, and I may make some suggestions, may suggest that they submit a casting call, which I figure that's going to help the client find the right person for the job, and it helps my fellow WriterAccess writers. Additionally, if I feel like the client needs assistance with the platform, that is outside my realm of expertise. Send them to the help desk, send them to a 1-800 number, send them elsewhere. I can't help there. Next slide, please. Conference calls. These come up more often than I ever believed would be possible. At first, I hated conference calls. I was nervous about talking with a client on the phone. As you've probably noticed, I have a bit of an accent. I am based just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, so I have that southern drawl. And almost every time the client gets on the phone with me, they're like, where are you from? Are you from Texas? Are you from Alabama? No, I'm from Georgia. But after a couple of minutes, I get past my nerves, and we accomplish a lot over the phone. And sometimes talking on the phone helps me realize that I'm not suited for the job. I had that come up earlier this month, that it seemed like on the messaging platform that this client and I were on the same page, that this was going to be a great job and everything. And then once I got on the conference call with the job, I realized that I was way out of my league, that this client actually needed some high-level marketing and some tasks that were definitely beyond what I could provide, and most likely beyond what someone on WriterAccess could provide, although I didn't say that. But conference call can be a good thing, and sometimes it can help you determine whether you will not be able to move forward with a job. The WriterAccess conference call line is actually very easy to use. You call into a 1888 number or 1-800 number, I don't remember exactly, but you have like a 6-digit code you type in, and it puts you directly on the line. You listen to some wonderful upbeat music until everybody's on the line, and then once you're there, you get to chat with the client, and then everybody gets to talk about what's happening, and then about 2 minutes after you hang up, you can download the audio from the file, and you can reference that, which can be very helpful after the fact. Occasionally, client communications can go in a negative direction. This is very rare because luckily most WriterAccess clients are very, very good. Usually when client communications go bad, it's because of a misunderstanding. And maybe a new client. I would say most of my bad client communication experiences have been with a new client who didn't realize that they couldn't try to contact me outside the platform. I've had a couple that have looked me up online and contacted me on Facebook or found my email address, which is a little unsettling. I'm not hard to find. I have a very odd last name, but when that happens, I've contacted the help desk, and they have contacted the client on my behalf and kind of told them the rules to WriterAccess, and I've never had a problem beyond that. I did have one other occasion where a client made me feel a little uncomfortable just with some things that were said in a message. Once again, I contacted the help desk, and I'm not sure exactly the exchange, but I did not respond to the client, and as far as I know, things were settled, and I never heard from him again. I don't know if you realize, but on the client record, you can make a note about the client so that in case the client ever does make you feel uncomfortable, you will know that in the record, and then you can look at them again. Maybe it can keep you from avoiding picking up work from that client again or engaging them accidentally in a message again in the future. Like I said, most clients on WriterAccess are super nice, and they would never intentionally have a bad communications experience with you. Next slide, please. As you can see, there's a lot to think about when it comes to communication, but it's very important. It's a vital part of the workflow at WriterAccess. Even though you're not paid for the writing and the emails that you have between the clients directly, it does lead to more work. I know that every message that I take and write to a client will lead to better relationships with them in the future. That's why sometimes if I really enjoy doing a job for a client, I'll leave them a little message on the order and say, hey, I really enjoyed writing about this topic. Thank you for sending me this order. I look forward to working with you again. It's a very small thing, but I feel like maybe it may help me set me out from the rest. And then outside of that, just check those emails, answer those messages. You don't have to be on 24 hours a day, but when you log on, check those messages. Make sure you're not leaving all those old messages sitting and rotting in your email box. You never know which of those messages could lead to a new job in the future.
All right, thank you so much, Tracy. Amazing tips on a tricky area, client communication. It can be the thing that, makes your writing career, or it could be a thing that, is a stumbling point for some people, I think. So a few questions for you. What do you do if you have a client who's somebody you really want to work with, but maybe they're overly demanding or vague about what they want, or perhaps rude? What are your strategies for dealing with that person, rather than, you go to the help desk, or do you have other things you can do as well?
Well, if they were outright rude, yes, I would probably involve the help desk. If they're vague or just a little awkward, I would definitely try to just engage them with more questions. I send them open-ended questions, try to do things like that. Definitely anything I can do to encourage them to send me more information helps. Sometimes I'll send them like a bullet point list of, what can you tell me about this, 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 and this?
Yeah, sometimes when I see writers, when a miscommunication between writers and clients, it's just a lack of information. Sort of one person assumes the other person knows something, and they're both making assumptions and just not telling each other enough things. So yeah, I think that's a really, really good good tip. Also, the idea of just not responding that you mentioned, I think that's really interesting. That if it's something that's rude, or like, you don't have to react immediately, take some time or open a help desk ticket. I think that's really helpful for a lot of writers.
Absolutely. I mean, if it makes you uncomfortable, if it's going to make things worse for you to respond, don't respond. I mean, there's no reason to do that. All that's going to do is make things worse for everybody involved.
Even when it's tempting, sometimes you just want to tell them what you think, but it's not really helping anybody.
Everybody always wants to be right and have the last word, but it's not gonna pay off. It's not gonna help anybody.
Yeah, I agree. And then the last thing I know that I thought was really interesting was that you mentioned to share ideas, to not try to keep everything to yourself. I think it's a little counterintuitive, because like you said, you think, well, it's my idea, and if I let it out, I sort of lose it. Whereas you're saying that if you share it, it actually sort of, you get more potential to actually be able to use it and be successful with it. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I feel like that when I come up with an idea, I mean, if I just try to hold it in, I'm not getting paid for this idea, why am I going to give them that idea for free? Well, I'm not going to get paid for it if I keep it for myself, or at least I'm not going to get paid for it if it's about HVAC and plumbing and roofing. If I have an idea for the next Harry Potter, maybe I will keep that for myself. But, if I have an idea that's going to help benefit a client, I'm going to go ahead and tell them, because I think that's going to lead to more work. That's going to benefit me, even if it doesn't mean immediately I'm going to get this $5 bonus. I think it's going to benefit me to go ahead and share it. It's going to make the client see me as a benefit for their team.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for sharing your tips on client communication. I encourage everybody to check out her WriterAccess profile and see all the great things she's been doing. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.
Next up, we will be talking to Amber Kay. She's a freelance writer here at WriterAccess. She will be talking about how to improve your writer profile, such an important part of getting found and winning clients and just your overall writer presentation. I think this is really key. Amber, are you there?
Hi. Yeah, I'm here.
Hi. Thanks for joining us. I'm really
interested
in hearing what you have to say. So I'm gonna pass it off to you and let you tell us all about how to improve our writer profiles.
All right. Well, I'm Amber Kay. I've been working with WriterAccess since I think 2012. So a little bit of time there. I want to just jump right in, I guess, and start talking about your profile picture, which I tend to think is one of the most important parts of your profile, simply because this is the first thing about you the client really sees. Now, a little bit of a personal anecdote here. My first profile picture on WriterAccess was awful. It was terrible. When I first started with WriterAccess, of course, I was working full-time, so it was just kind of this hasty smartphone selfie. I was standing in my dining room. It was dark, like 6 o'clock in the morning, next to a lamp. It was terrible. It looked like the worst selfie ever. Now, I've also done a little bit of professional photography, so I procrastinated for, I don't know, 6 months or a year, and then I finally got around to doing a set of professional headshots for myself. And the response that I got just from updating my profile picture was the week I posted the new picture, I started getting messages from, offers from clients, which is something that never really had happened before. I started getting more love list approvals. I even started getting, oddly enough, more ratings from clients that I was already working with. Honestly, I would say that the profile photo itself was the best improvement my profile's ever seen. Now, we can flip to the next slide. I'll show you some of the things that I think a profile photo needs to be. And number one, I think that a profile picture needs to humanize you a little bit. We're on kind of an impersonal platform here. We don't often jump on the phone with our clients. We don't have face-to-face contact with them. So you want to use an image that's not only professional, but also has just a little bit of personality. When it comes to some of the things that your photos should not be, bottom line, they shouldn't be badly photoshopped. I've seen, even at big name publications, that have the writer profiles up on their website, even some of the places like that, I've seen, photos that have crazy color effects. If you see on my slide, some of them are just outrageous with the colors. Some of them are really bright. Some of them have Instagram-type filters, wild makeup. In order to present a professional image, you really want to avoid a photo that looks like it came from some teenager's selfie album on Facebook. So I think with your profile photo, the best way to send a message of professionalism is to actually go get a professional photo. If you yourself are not a photographer, you don't have a friend that's a photographer, it's well worth it to hire a professional photographer to get a set of headshots done that you can use for WriterAccess. Now we flip to the next, the next slide after that one. We'll talk about your profile page and what you should write on your profile page. The first thing to remember, no matter which section of your profile page you're working with, is that you should write with your writing style. The temptation, I think, sometimes is to venture into the kind of cutesy, salesy things. Sometimes people want to say things like, Amber Kay was born to write for you and promises to fulfill your every need, no matter what that may be. These kinds of things, I think, they're an unbelievable claim. And nowadays, people are looking for subtle marketing tactics. So when you use statements like this throughout your profile, it just kind of comes across like you're trying to advertise with brute force. So let's talk a little bit about the individual sections of your profile. And the first section, the top section, is your summary of experience. Now, this section, I would say, needs to be kept brief. It shouldn't be a memoir. Shouldn't go into detail about how you started using pencils when you were age 3, and then you started winning elementary school essay contests. Rather than going into brief or going into great detail about all these things, you want to mention the things that clients really want to know about. Things like where you got your start as a professional writer, how long you've been writing professionally, things like prominent awards that you've won, not the essay contest that you won in 5th grade, but actual professional accolades. If you've gotten bylined, been published in other publications outside of WriterAccess, give a shout out to those publications. You can't link to your bylined articles, but you can say that, oh, I've been published in the New York Times or Popular Mechanics or something like that. I think that's actually kind of a valuable thing because it kind of legitimizes you as a writer. It shows that you're a professional and you're not just trying to, do this for spare change. The next sections, and there's several of them, there's specialties, interests, education, awards, all those things. These are also sections that I would say should be kept pretty brief. Just make a couple of quick sentences, make a couple of bullet points. I think like the education section, doesn't really even leave you a lot of room to go into great detail. All you really need is to make a mention of each of these things and then lead the client deeper into your profile where, there'll be the asset industry sections. That's where you really want to go into detail. Now, speaking of the asset and industry sections, that's really the last part of the profile. This section, this is one of my favorite parts of the profile because what you have here are all these different spaces that are set up to be kind of highly specific. So up top in your summary of experience, you don't really want to go into great detail about, say, construction, and how many construction projects you've done and how many articles you've written. Instead, you want to save that for the asset section. Under the construction heading, that's where you go into your years of experience, how much real-world experience you have, how much writing you've done for this industry or asset. And then, of course, the second part to that are the samples. Now, to use the construction example, or the construction industry again, let's say that you've not written too many articles about it. You don't have a lot of real-world experience to list. Your sample proves that regardless of how much experience you have what it takes to write for the client. So whenever I create a sample for the asset and industry sections, I make sure that, number one, my sample is pretty large. Obviously you don't want to post an entire 500 or 1,000-word blog post, but you don't want to just write a couple of sentences and leave it at that. So when I create a sample, what I do is I first make a label. So I might say something about, this is an excerpt from a piece about X topic. And then beneath that, I'll actually paste in the sample, which is usually just a couple of paragraphs, 100 or 200 words, that shows a little bit about my skills. Now, the last point I have to make is that your profile is not a one-and-done endeavor. Now, they're big, complex. I know myself that, I don't update my profile as often as I really should. It just feels like there's too much paid writing to be done. I don't have enough time to do the profile updates. But really, it's a great idea to make it a habit, every couple of weeks, every month, glance at it, make some updates. I mean, you have to kind of think, that writing is kind of a never-ending learning process, and you're going to learn and grow throughout your career. And I kind of think that your profile should follow that same progression. And that's all I've got.
All right. Thank you so much, Amber. I really appreciate you talking about profile and all that. Very important stuff. So a lot of really interesting things in there. Obviously, the picture, so important. I mean, we all judge people fairly or unfairly based on first impressions and images, so I think that's definitely key.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds superficial, but then again, it is what it is. We really can't change that.
Yeah, it's just, you can't help it. Somebody, that's the thing that makes you scroll down and read more. Definitely the people who take the time to get a good photo. And professional photo is, I think, a really good investment for any writer. If you're working on other platforms, if you're working privately, it's a great thing to have.
Yeah, definitely.
I wonder, what's your approach toward industries in your profile? say somebody, do you choose a small number of industries that you only want to work in, or do you go for more a broad, like you fill out a lot of industries with a lot of writing samples? What's kind of your angle there?
That's a great question. You know, when I started, I had a really, really broad profile. You know, anything from agriculture to automotive, you know, and what I have been doing over the years is I've actually been narrowing my profile down, because I kind of feel like when you have lots and lots of totally unrelated industries on your profile, it kind of makes you look like a jack of all trades, master of none sort of thing. So nowadays, you know, I try to keep things, you know, like I have, say, home living, construction, and green living, green products, those kind of things, because they're all interrelated in some way. I think that there's probably a middle ground. You don't want to go too short, but you also probably don't want to have 30 of each asset and industry on your profile.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Very good advice. As far as samples, where do you pull those from? Do you take those from past work? Have you ever custom written a sample just to use as a sample?
A little of both. If I've got something that's bylined, that's relevant, that I really like, I have permission to use, I'll go ahead and use that. If I don't, I would say probably 3/4 of my samples are just something that I made up off the top of my head, you know, because I needed a sample.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because I think some writers are reluctant to put that time in, you know, unpaid writing, but you feel like that in the long term pays off for you to spend that extra hour or two, whatever it might be?
Oh, definitely. I will say, you know, when I update my profile, it's usually this massive endeavor. It takes me 2 8-hour days to go through it and rewrite everything, but it's definitely a worthwhile investment.
All right. Well, thank you, Amber, for taking the time to tell us all about profiles. And people can check Amber out. Yeah, great to have you. And people can check you out at Twitter, Amber Knuckles. Hope I'm saying that right. WriterAccess Profile. And all right, thanks so much, Amber. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Lindsay D. She's going to be talking to us about time management on the platform and just general use of sort of the technological things to do so. She's a 6-star writer with 5 years of experience. She really knows her stuff and how to use the technology. So welcome, Lindsay. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and would love to hear what you have to say.
All right. Well, hi, everybody. As you know, I'm Lindsay, and I'm going to be talking about some of the ways that you can budget your time while freelancing. As of today, I've written over 2 million words for WriterAccess clients on over 4,000 orders. I'm a level 6 writer with 5 years of experience. But when I got started with WriterAccess, I was in graduate school, and I was only freelancing part-time. So I worked for WriterAccess, and I had a combination of jobs through grad school and after before I decided to freelance full-time. So once I made this decision, I took a look at my work habits, and I realized that I needed to get more professional about my work habits. Before that point, I still worked regularly. I'd work every day. I'd complete my assignments on time. But I didn't really set professional goals for myself or focus on attracting high-paying clients. I was really just looking to earn the money that I needed to pay my bills, and I would accept whatever assignments were available at my star rating whenever I had time to write. Now, since going full-time as a freelancer, I've managed to not only increase my earnings, but also increase my free time that I have. So I wanted to offer some general time management tips that you can use to increase your efficiency, and they'll work whether you want to work full-time, just make extra money on the side, or meet any other goal. Now, to start, I want to share with you my daily routine. You can see how I spend my day and what habits I use that let me be really just as efficient as possible when I'm writing and when getting work in my pipeline. So I usually get up between 7:30 and 8. First off, I make coffee. I'm not able to be productive without that. By about 8:30 in the morning, I'm online. I've logged onto WriterAccess, checked out what work I have in my queue, and I'm starting to get to work. Now, I keep a couple of easy clients around. For me, these are clients with a lower star rating. They have a low word count for their assignment. They need simple content, but they need a lot of it. So I like to work on this content in the morning while I'm kind of starting my day with my coffee and breakfast. By around 9:30 or 10, I'm usually ready to take on more challenging work that pays me better. So I'll work on more hard stuff in the afternoon, work on any solo orders that I have. take a break for lunch, and get back to work. By around 2:30 in the day, I'm finished with my work, and then I switch gears. I respond to client messages, manage orders in my queue, and take some time to apply to casting calls so that I have work in my pipeline. And then for about 2:30 to 5, I work on my writing blog or my creative writing. I have a novel in progress. Basically anything that's professional but I don't get paid for. And this is my basic schedule every day, Monday to Friday. So I always keep track of my earnings, and I stop writing whenever I reach my earnings goal for the day. So consistency is something that's really key for me. It reduces my uncertainty, it increases my stability, and it increases my earnings potential. And one of the main reasons that I'm able to be so consistent as a freelance writer is that I have a reputation for delivering great work, and I work hard to maintain good work habits. Now, I'm not suggesting that you copy my daily routine, but rather that you find a way to take whatever time you do have and you use it to get organized and get things done while minimizing time waste. Next slide, please. So as a freelancer, you aren't getting paid if you're not writing. So what are some ways that you can make the most use out of the time you have to write, even if you just have an hour? And this slide lists some of my strategies that I use to budget my time on WriterAccess. Some of these tips might seem like common sense, but you'd really be surprised at how many freelancers just don't have good time management. I've had friends that freelance get in trouble with clients, really put themselves under a lot of stress and diminish their earnings potential simply because they haven't found a way to manage their time efficiently. So you can see my top tips for time management. Just be accountable for the work that you commit to do. Know what time of day you work best, or even what time of day you have to write, and then show up at that time ready to write. Avoid distractions in your environment. It's great if you have something like a home office, but if you don't have the space for that, invest in some noise-canceling headphones. Get yourself whatever tools you need to really be able to concentrate and focus. Track your earnings and your time spent working like I do. You need to know how you're doing overall before you can really improve upon your performance. And sharpen your research skills. This is really key. Any time that you're spending researching for a client is time that you're not getting paid for. So I like to develop a sense of what level of research is going to be good enough to write the content for the client in an authoritative manner, and then don't spend any more time researching than that. I like to write my content quickly, write it, review it, revise it afterward. I don't try to revise as I go. I also don't try to make things perfect. If it's high quality writing, it's good enough for me, and if a client wants me to change something, then they're going to ask me to make edits anyway, and then I can only change the things that they want changed. Also, something a lot of people don't do is really plan ahead. So keep, life events, travel, holidays in mind. You are the one that has to maintain your work-life balance, and so you need to make sure that you have money coming in if you're going to be taking time off from work. Finally, just be patient with yourself. Even if you're not really at the level that you want to be at right now, you will be able to get there if you keep trying and you develop good work habits. Now, these are the habits and routine that I use every day to do a consistent amount of high-quality work. But another part of managing your time effectively is knowing when and how to ask for help. Next slide, please. So now we're going to look at some of the tools that WriterAccess offers that you can use to get your work done on time, reduce your stress, and keep your clients happy. So whenever you have an order, you're going to need to work with deadlines. So this gets into timers and extensions. Every time you check out an order, as you know, there's a timer. It starts counting down immediately. So once you check out an order, you have an hour. You can review the assignment. You can drop it without penalty. But once that hour is up, then you are on the hook to write the order before the time is up, or you will be penalized. Now, if you're not skilled at managing your time, this is where you can easily get into trouble. I had a friend who used to freelance, and she would just constantly forget to pay attention to the deadlines on her orders. As a result, she would wind up doing a lot of her work at the last minute. It wouldn't be very good. She'd always be complaining about work because she was stressed out, and then she'd also end up losing clients because she was just difficult to work with and not great at managing her time. So just always be aware of the timer. I often end up writing my content close to the deadline, but I know when my deadline is, I know when my assignment is due, and I made sure that I have enough time to write that content at a high level of quality. So again, I can't say enough. You need to know how to work with deadlines if you want to succeed on WriterAccess. And if this is something that's hard for you, Try to take a step back and think about where specifically you have trouble and how you can improve your performance. Now, extensions are something that I try to use sparingly because I feel that it's in my best interest to get the work done in the time frame given to me. This way, my clients are happy and the WriterAccess staff is happy. But if something comes up and you're not able to complete the assignment in the time given, then you can absolutely ask for an extension through the Request Assistance button. And there's also an Add 1 hour button that you can use up to 3 times a month. So just when it comes to this, use your judgment. This is something that's a privilege, and you should treat it as such and don't make it a habit. Now, I did just request an extension last week. I was away for the weekend visiting family, and a client approved a pitch that I had made. And the order would have expired during the time that I was away. So I just got in touch with the client, explained what was going on for me, and I asked for an extra day. And he had no problem giving me the time. Now, finding answers and getting unstuck. What do you do when you have a problem with an order? There are many ways to get answers, so quickly I'm just going to go over how I use the client messaging system, the pause button, the help desk, and the writer forums. So first off, I just want to say it's always better to ask if something isn't clear to you than to make an assumption. If you make an assumption and that assumption is wrong, then you might end up doing the same work twice by having to make extensive revisions for the client. Now, if you just have a quick question or something isn't clear, just send the client a comment in the order. Usually they'll get back to you quickly. If they're not getting back to you, you can pause the order, or you can check in and have the help desk check in with them and see what's going on. Now, if something is not clear and you don't have a lot of time, you might want to do that pause by requesting client assistance. And this allows you to just check in with the client and get the information that you need to write the order in the way that the client wants it. If you find that you're getting into this situation a lot, then just spend more time looking at the order requirements ahead of time so you don't wind up in a time crunch next time. Now, if I'm unsure if something is going to penalize me or if I need to get an answer from a client and I'm not getting it from them, then I don't hesitate to get in touch with the help desk. For example, I've checked in with them about whether it's okay to drop a pitch order without getting a penalty after I've pitched multiple topics to the client and the client has rejected them. You know, that said, I do try to be mindful that there are a lot of writers and there are few staff manning the help desk, so I only really go to the help desk if I can't find the information that I need elsewhere. And the writer forums are something I would recommend for any other question that you have about writing, working with clients, or using the WriterAccess platform. It's a great first place to check if you have a question, as odds are that other writers have encountered a similar issue. Now, I hope that all of these strategies will help demystify the WriterAccess platform for you and inspire you to make the best use of your time. And that's all I've got.
All right. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Great tips. I really appreciate that. I think you set a very good example for everybody. I'm impressed with your disciplined daily routine. Can you tell me a little bit about how you developed that? Was that just over time you've learned that your brain is best, you know, doing this at this time of day, or how did that come about?
Well, I started to realize that around the mid-afternoon, my brain switches gears to a more creative gear, and that was really the best time for me to work on my creative writing. And in the morning, it's really easy for me to focus, and if I just start my day focused and getting work done, then it's easy for me to just do all of my work at that time, and then it's done and I'm not stressed out. Like, I know that I would not work well if I was doing other things in the day and then I had to kind of show up and clock in at like 5 p.m. So I would spend the whole day being like, oh, I gotta, you know, work later, I gotta do this and that. And so I just know that my whole frame of mind is just better if I get my work done early, and then I know it's done and then I don't have to worry about it. And I have too many friends that freelance that kind of don't have that, and they're always like, oh my God, I'm so late on these articles. And I'm like, dude, you know, just maybe try something different. This is not working for you.
Yeah, it seems like that's really good advice. Just knowing when is best for you and sticking to that routine and not, you know, letting it get down to the last minute. I think that's really important. And along the same lines, I assume, do you work from home or do you work in an office outside of your house?
I work from home.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you avoid distraction when you're at home? Like, because you're surrounded by your own things, you know, like it's easy to turn on the TV, turn on music, whatever. What do you do? What are your strategies for avoiding distractions?
Yeah, well, I mean, like a recent example for me is I used to kind of start my day just by like logging on social media and going on Facebook and going on Twitter, and I found that when I started my day that way, then almost like every time I could complete an order, I'd want to like go back on and see if anything new was happening. So I just kind of got firm with myself and was like, you cannot do this first thing in the morning, you can do this later. And just that one simple shift, you know, now I may not even go on social media until lunchtime.
Mm.
So
That's
just like
fine.
thinking like, what is the block for me? What am I getting distracted by? And what can I do to change it? Like my biggest distraction is my senior pet, who's asleep right now, but he's often bumbling around the room, and so let me go in a different room.
Yeah, yeah. So similarly, how do you? Well, actually, it's changing gears a little. I'm thinking about revisions, because you can plan for, say, you know, you have an article and you think this takes me an hour to write, but you can't really plan as much for revisions. How do you budget into your time for that?
Well, I don't get a lot of revisions, which is great, so that's always helpful. But when they do come up, if I try to just take a look at them so I know what the client wants. And if it's just a simple thing like, oh, you know, will you please work in a sentence on this? Then I might just take care of it then so that it's done. But if they want something more complex, if they want me to take another pass at something, I'll usually just like leave it till the next day. That way I know that I have to do it.
Mm. Do you have a set time in the day where you work on revisions, or you just kind of fit it in between other projects?
Whenever I feel up to it. I don't have a set time when I do that. Like they're pretty rare, and that's often something that I'm like, oh shoot, I need to do this in the next 3 hours because the time is going to expire. But you know, since I am a full-time freelancer, I do have the full day.
All right, very cool. Well, thank you again, Lindsay, for taking the time to give us your tips for time management. Everybody can, people should check you out on your website, askaworkingwriter.com, Twitter at WordHack, and your WriterAccess public profile. See what you're up to. Thanks again.
Yep, thank you.
Next up, we have Miranda B. She's going to be our final speaker for today, and she's going to talk about a really important thing for long-term success, I think, on WriterAccess, which is finding your niche, finding the area that you really excel in, and how to grow and pursue that. So welcome, Miranda.
Hello everybody.
Thanks for joining us. I'm gonna pass it off to you now to tell us about finding your niche.
Okay, I've been a freelance writer since 2009 and with WriterAccess since 2011, and I'm super close to the 2 million word mark like Lindsay. And the way I've made it to that mark was by finding my niche. So here's just a review you can read over this. And this is one of the first things I heard about when I was getting started with freelance writing. Every business advice column and how to become a freelance writer article said something about finding your single special focus as you commit to your freelance business. This helps you target an audience and paying clients. And getting into a niche also leads you to become an expert on your topic. People pay more for expert advice. Plus, it's just easier to write about a single industry after you've spent all day researching that subject. Okay, and moving on to the next slide. Thank you. So I chose travel writing as my niche, and I'm not the only freelancer to take this path. I love to travel. I have experience traveling in the U.S. and abroad, and I wanted to write about those experiences. With dreams of becoming so popular, I'd get paid to travel while writing. Lonely Planet God, here I come. So I started writing a lot of content, but it had nothing to do with travel writing because that's not the type of content that was in demand by my clients. I did manage to write some travel content for a few sites like USA Today and the now defunct Raindrops.com, but I quickly learned that I would not become the female version of Rick Steves anytime soon. What happened? Google travel writers and you will find more people that do travel writing as their entire life, literally. They live overseas, they travel for 365 days a year, they've sold all of their personal belongings and are working on the road for travel money. This was my competition in a heavily saturated industry of freelance travel writers. So sort of had to steer in a different direction there if I wanted to get paid in my niche. Little did I realize that I would be involved in travel writing, but in a domestic sort of way. I knew a lot about transportation, as I'd taken my first cross-country road trip when I was 3 with my parents in an 18-wheeler, and I've ridden along on thousands of miles since then, getting a glimpse of lot lizards, being shut down and snowed in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and even testing my skills as a faux trucker on a moving vehicle. So over-the-road trucking turned out to be my niche. As the daughter of a long-haul trucker, as well as being in a relationship with one, I can write about this topic all day long. And I do, and I have for the past year and a half. For my primary client, I've written more than 400 articles of approximately 800 words each, some up to 1,000, all on the topic of commercial long-haul trucking. That's 320,000 words, in case you're wondering. Each week, I virtually meet up with others on the team committed to trucking content, and we pull our latest ideas for new content on that topic. There's never a problem with coming up with new ideas when you have a personal interest and a lifelong history in the industry. While I would never call myself a truck driver, I do enjoy writing about the subject. That passion is most important, and I don't know a lot of freelance content writers for the web who are ingrained in the trucking world like I am, so it's become my niche. Okay, moving to the next slide, Chris. Thank you. Okay, so how do you find your niche? And I'm going to go through here. Finding a niche places you in a position to write on the topic that few other writers cover as an expert. So rather than choosing a niche topic that's of great interest or excitement, think on a more realistic scope. You can start by taking a sheet of paper and divide it into 3 columns. You're going to label them interest, experience, and passion. For the first column under interest, list 5 interests you have, no matter how unrelated to writing they could be. I never thought truck driving jobs related to writing at all, and I was certainly mistaken. Chances are, if you're passionate about something, someone else out there is, and if there's a market for it and an audience, in our capitalist society, there's also a business charging it. If there's not, just wait. It'll happen, and you'll be there to reach out as a writer. For the next column under experience, list 5 things that you have a first-hand experience with. Did you study sociology in college? Do you love to read nonfiction for dummy guys? Did you pick grapes on a vineyard for 5 seasons? Have you ever volunteered for any nonprofit? These could translate into your niche. On the next column, the third one, you're going to talk about 5 passions that you have, things that you have lots to say about. Politics, gardening, traveling, religious studies, LGBT rights, whatever. If you have knowledge, educated opinions, or resources on a subject, then you have a niche that suits your interest. Then you're going to take those 3 columns and you're going to single out one concept that you have in all 3 columns. For example, if you have an interest in pets and you have experience walking dogs, and then you have a passion about animal rights, that right there is your all-encompassing niche. You're obviously interested in animals. You can target it at those 3 areas. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to list 5 companies, nonprofits, clients, etc., who would be able to profit from that niche content that you've come up with. These are the places you would go first when searching for new clients in your niche. For example, with the example that I was talking about with the animals, the companies could be pet food brands, local veterinarians, or PETA. So in a nutshell, to find your niche, take a look at your passions, experiences, and interests, and these 3 things will help you hone your niche in writing. Then you find a client that's willing to pay you for that content. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you so much, Miranda. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Your slide with your information got missed. We'll insert that in there for people when they download it. But okay. You want to tell us where people can find you? Anywhere other than on your public profile?
Yeah, on my public profile at WriterAccess, and then at www.mirandabrumbaugh.com. Brumbaugh spelled B-R-U-M-B-A-U-G-H. Typically have a lot of issues with that last name. So.
Well, thank you very much for sharing. That's really interesting. I mean, your experience is fascinating. You said you've driven an 18-wheeler before?
Yeah, I did. My dad, we were going down the highway, and he said, "Oh, do you want to get behind the wheel as we're moving down the highway?" And I said, "Sure," and I did it. And, I mean, I didn't shift gears or anything, but I have a picture of me steering. So
So you got in with it was already moving, and you got behind the wheel. That sounds harder than going from.
Yeah, it was awesome. No, yeah, it was awesome.
Very
yeah,
cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So do you still do work outside of your niche, or have you kind of really honed in on doing that alone?
I do a little bit of work outside my niche, but I also have a master's degree in sociology, so I do stuff. I've done things for private clients in the realm of sociology specifically, and then I do things outside of my niche just because I have a huge major client that I do a lot of trucking stuff for, but that's really a niche. So there's a lot more opportunities out there to get paid for writing, and I will take those whenever I can or whenever I have the time to do them. So
yeah,
I mean, I prefer to write about trucking. Like I have a lot of ideas and interest and experience writing about it, but I mean, you have to sort of expand your horizons a little bit. So
sure. What's the difference between writing about something that you're like really an expert in and something new? Have you kind of learned anything interesting about writing or become a better writer by doing those two different things?
Well, when you have to go through and research definitely. I know I'm really interested in marketing, especially online marketing, and so I try to pick up assignments that are in those areas because I don't know as much about that stuff as I should, and so I end up doing a lot of research, and it takes more time to do that, but you learn so much in the process, and that really helps you. Maybe you'll have a new niche. You just never know. So.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, so do you think you would ever develop more niches in the future? Is this something that, like, somebody you pick one and you go with, or do you know or have you seen writers who kind of have multiple areas and are successful at that?
I think it would be ideal to have multiple areas. Right now, I'm sort of have a lot of work with just trucking, but if that ever changed over and I lost sort of that main client, I would definitely need to find a different niche. I think that sort of has something to do with it too, the way the market goes, what clients are most interested in. So that has you sort of evolve with the process.
Very interesting, very interesting. Well, thank you so much, Miranda, for sharing your story and helping our writers learn about how to find their niche and be more successful.
Okay.
So now we're at the point where people can send in some more questions if they have them. We are running a little bit long on the webinar, so unfortunately we can't take too much more time on the questions, and I think we've got a lot of really good information from everybody already. So we'll see if there's anything. I wonder, throwing it out to the panelists, do any of you have questions for any of the other panelists or anything you want to say?
Good job, everybody. Everyone had very good and very interesting topics. It was good to hear everyone.
It was all very, very interesting to hear. Excellent stuff.
Yeah, it's nice to hear what other people do and how they, problem solve and find success online.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think you could probably all speak to each other's presentations a little bit too, because you all have experience in these areas as well. But I don't know if anything came to anyone's mind that they would like to add or ask.
Lindsay, are you a morning person in general?
No, I'm like not a morning person whatsoever. But I can do anything with coffee.
Oh, sure.
Coffee turns everyone into a morning person.
I just want to say that Amber's presentation on the profile has really inspired me to get in there and make some changes. I know mine's gotten a little stagnant, so I needed that kick in the butt to really get something moving.
Thanks, Tracy. I think I need to get inspired to do more work on my own profile, too.
Very cool. So I think we'll wrap it up there. And if people who are on the webinar now still have questions, email them in to me, Greg at WriterAccess, and I will send them out to our expert panel here and get some more detailed answers for you. And so feel free to pick their brain. They all have amazing experience and knowledge to share. So definitely do that. You can also tweet us at WriterAccess. You can call 617-227-8800, or you can email me directly. That's what I recommend if you have questions. And don't forget to join us next month. We have another writer webinar coming up where I'm going to have 5 more WriterAccess writers join us to talk about some different topics, maybe branch out a little bit more away from the platform and talk about writing for specific industries, some personal stories about that, some advice, suggestions, and I think that'll be really interesting. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. I especially want to thank the panelists, Erin, Lindsay, Miranda, Tracy, and Amber. You all did a great job. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right, bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.